Hola, I'm Erica Villarreal Ekwurzel, founder of CivicAIM, a philanthropic advisory practice working with individuals, families, and teams within organizations, aiming to strengthen their grant-making, governance, and impact. I'm thrilled to announce the launch of the Redefining Philanthropy in Practice and Profession, a new CivicAIM video series that features leaders who are at the forefront of centering equity in philanthropy. In each episode, as I shared before during the rollout, you will meet some of the most courageous and resourceful practitioners of color, leaders who have gone beyond a business as usual mindset and show us that philanthropy can be what it can be if it's structured to drive justice across communities and generations. So it is my great honor to have Andine. Andine, thank you so much for being my inaugural guest in this series.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I honestly can't think of a better leader, practitioner, person, and friend who I can share this time with. So for those of you who have not met Andine Sutarjadi, I'll share briefly that she's a speaker, a facilitator, and a writer on next generation philanthropy, as well as a director at 2164, a nonprofit that focuses on multi-generational philanthropy and giving. And she also leads the 2164 Certified Advisors of Color program, which I've had the honor and pleasure of serving on its advisory committee. So you ready to get into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. So, Andine, you and I have been on Zoom quite a while for these last couple of years, right?
Yeah.
However, we've also had the opportunity to first meet in person pre-COVID while you were here in Austin, Texas. I believe in 2019, January, perhaps even early February.
No.
And right, so you and I were both attending a next generation philanthropy that was being hosted and drawing people from across the globe to talk about this issue and highlight different programs and leaders in this space. And for me, we had the opportunity to have a fabulous Tex-Mex lunch, as well as just brainstorm our vision and being our authentic self in philanthropy. And in large part, Andine, you help inspire me to create this series featuring courageous leaders who are at the center of equity in philanthropy. So thank you. So perhaps you can share with our guest our luncheon discussions and vision planning and how that has kind of transpired over the years.
Well, thank you so much, firstly, Erica, for having me as part of your series. You know, I don't normally think of myself as someone who is bold or courageous. I think that I lead with just a feeling of necessity and a feeling of urgency and a feeling of community, of learning and hearing what the community needs in order for me to build space and make space for others to feel heard in the spaces that I'm in. So thank you so much for including me in your space and in this space together. And yes, our lunch was incredibly serendipitous. We met, as you mentioned, in Austin, Texas, over some Tex-Mex. It was the first time I've ever had Tex-Mex. It was amazing. And I think we really got into talking about how we came to our roles in philanthropy. I think in a way, philanthropy is a very interesting sector. Some people stumble upon becoming professionals in philanthropy, and some people are a lot more intentional. So I came into our meeting and our conversation really just curious, like, how did you get to where you were? You know, what was your journey? Here's what my journey looks like. And in the process of us having these conversations, I had a little voice in me wanted to test an idea with you. And that idea was around, how would you feel, or what would you think about? How would you think about building a community of BIPOC philanthropic advisors or BIPOC philanthropic professionals like you and me, so that we could not only inform each other of the work that we're doing, like what we did during that lunch, but also find a way to share experiences, challenges, opportunities, aspirations, and do it in a way where we are also able to gain tangible technical skills to help us in our practice and in our work. And given my role at 2164, that I felt was somewhere where we could provide that experience and then also curate a community around it that could help with the ongoing learning journey and community building of the professionals that I, at that time, dreamt about and imagined that I would work with. So I shared it with you. Obviously, it wasn't as fully formed as how I'm talking about now, but you really welcomed it. You not only welcomed it, but you embraced it. You not only embraced it, but you had ideas about it. And you not only had ideas about it, but you were like, let's do it right now. So it was your acceleration. I think the acceleration of a few other BIPOC philanthropic colleagues that are as a part of 2164's network that really energized me to continue working on this idea. I mean, I know a lot of people of color in the field, we have more than one job, right? Like our job is to get the work done that's in our resume or in our job description. And then we also have side hustles and side jobs that we do. And you know, for the first couple of months after our lunch, this was my side hustle. This was something that I did after hours, talking to people, having conversations, doing some research on, is there a program like this already? Like, am I reinventing the wheel? Yeah, and you know, your support and as part of the advisory committee has really helped to accelerate the work that we're doing now. And I can't wait to tell you more about it and tell the audience more about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. No, yeah, especially as we celebrate the kind of graduation of the inaugural cohort of Color. And so that was something that Andine and I really got to celebrate and be with that community of the first cohort, in which there is a second cohort. So before we dive in a little bit deeper to the Certified Advisors of Color initiative and program, Andine, I want to hear about you, because this series is about redefining philanthropy. And so not only are we examining the person behind the profession and the practice, but also your perspective of the field and it's evolving and changing. And so tell us a little bit more about your story. How did you get involved in philanthropy as a next generation donor and an advisor?
Yeah, well, thank you for the question. You know, I come into this work, and I say this whenever I step into the room, wearing two hats, right? I'm myself a third generation inheritor, a donor myself, you know, who practice philanthropy with my family back home in Indonesia. I have really deep roots where I come from. I can trace my heritage through generations and generations in the past. So I have a rich cultural background, not only in terms of our giving, but also just in terms of our family and what that means and how that relates to philanthropy and the giving that I do now in the United States, individually as well. But on the other side of it, I'm also a professional, right, that does this work with donors themselves. So I think having that added perspective of both being a donor and also being a professional provides me with the opportunity to see some nuances in the field and in the spaces that I'm in that are unique and very different. I think that sometimes when I step into the room, due to the way that I look and that I don't look like a traditional white woman, man, person donor, they would expect that I'm in that room showing up today as a professional or as a fundraiser, or even sometimes not that. Like sometimes my space in the room, I need to come in and define that for myself, because no one else is going to, and the culture and the media isn't going to do that. So that's I think one way that I see my perspective very different in this field. And then secondly, as a professional, I inherently know how I want to be treated as a donor, or I inherently know how I want to be honored, or how I want professionals to speak to my values, and how I want professionals to sort of advise me as a next gen, not in a way that's like, you are the son or the daughter of someone that I'm working with, and you are the child of X person, but really as my own, with my own ideas, and embracing me as someone who has a unique perspective. So I think in both hats that I wear, I always strive to be seen and heard and to redefine who I am as a leader. And I think what the field, in my opinion, does really well is provide opportunities for donors to thrive and provide opportunities for donors to learn and to connect and to really hone their philanthropic skills. And as a donor, I've also benefited from these educational opportunities. But I think when it comes to professionals, what we at 2164 provides, and I think what the field needs to do more and cultivate, is the caring, the sustaining, and the cultivation of professionals in the field, especially BIPOC professionals in the field, because of the nuances and the power dynamics that we experience. And that's, I think, what the Certified Advisors of Color program is trying to achieve. We are trying to balance out the playing field, level the playing field, and say, if donors and funders are having all of these opportunities and all of these wonderful learning and community building, then the individuals that guide them, help them steward their resources, that support them, deserve not the same, because they're different, but an equitable amount of caring and feeding of their souls and their intellect. And both of my perspectives as a donor, as a professional, and a person of color, and as someone who's young, who's oftentimes overlooked, and oftentimes like, who's this girl talking over here like really loudly about doing all these crazy things. It's and then having a supervisor and a board of directors and an executive director that listens to me and hears me, and professionals that believe in me, is all accumulating of like who I am as an individual, and as someone that leads this program currently.
Yeah. No, I love the fact how you opened up and touched about how philanthropy was really nurtured and cultivated at home. And that started with you and your family, and particularly your mom, right? And creating this this space and connecting resources to opportunity. And then that later flowed into perhaps, your own academic and professional development. And then to now it's led to a career of different leadership opportunities, that you have continued to build upon, but also expand and encourage others to be their authentic self, but also open up that space so that others too can be their authentic and enter in that role or in that space with a diversity of roles and a diversity of lived experiences.
Right.
So I think that's really beautiful. And to kind of fast forward to where we are today with the Certified Advisors of Color. And as you mentioned, many times people, they either look at you and they have specific, assumptions, or they've already kind of put you in a specific box. But I also find, as for myself as a professional of color, we do have to define or redefine what their thoughts are of us. And sometimes that does take courage within ourselves and confidence to articulate that, to practice and to model that. And so one of the aspects I really want to open up with our audience and explore is, you mentioned this idea that you had of bringing together a community of BIPOC professionals. So you were within the network, a professional within the 2164 network. And I think that you were fairly new. Obviously, you came with some great experiences in philanthropy and leadership, but this was kind of a whole new ballgame, right? And program initiative.
Yes.
So tell us about that journey. Tell us about how you opened up those conversations with essentially the founder of 2164.
Yeah, what a great question. Where do I begin? I think, I started 2164 in 2018, and, the work that we do is I would say really deeply rooted in values, really deeply rooted in family culture, really deeply rooted in obviously philanthropy, strategic decision making. And when I first took the 2164 training as part of my onboarding experience on the staff, I took so much learnings and just a lot of ahas from the training that we did. I think as an Asian person, an Indonesian person, I rarely talk about my feelings or my values. And so, or even, as much as I do acknowledge and have a lot of clarity around my family history, it's not something that I talk about. It's not something that is public. It's not something that a lot of people know about me. So even the act of telling my story, the act of taking the training unlocked like a piece of me that I felt like a lot of my peers and a lot of my colleagues who are BIPOC or who are people of color would also take advantage and would appreciate. I was at this point where I was eating our own cooking or drinking our Kool-Aid and like wanting to share that with other people too. Except I didn't know how, because we didn't have a lot of people of color taking our training. So in a way, it was also out of necessity for myself, because I wanted to share my experience in this training that I took with others. And then I started really realizing and started examining, why is it that 2164 largely attracted or largely accommodated to majority white audiences, partly because, yes, the philanthropic field is majority non-BIPOC, as I like to say. And yet I know that we are out there. I know that there are professionals out there who want to show up in their full selves, who want to talk about their values, their family cultures, who want to show up in front of their donors and have amazing conversations and be transformative in their work. And so we just started thinking about, me and Sharna, our founder, what are the ways in which we can broaden our scope and our reach? And that, number one, starts with building relationships. And I didn't bring it up to her to say, here's all the things that you did wrong, and here's all the things that we're doing right, and we need to change everything. That's not the way that I phrased it. The way that the conversation happened was, let's build a bigger tent. Let's pitch a bigger tent. Let's broaden our reach, and let's invite more people in. Let's build a bigger house. Let's invite more communities into this experience that is extremely valuable. And to do that, we needed to change the way that we approached our work, because our audience was largely white. The way that we taught, the way that we framed our exercises were, not as inclusive for experiences of BIPOC individuals. So we enlisted Erica's help and other advisory committee members to share how they would do things differently based on what they know, and incorporate that into our curriculum so that everyone hopefully will feel seen and heard when they come to us.
Now, a couple of threads I kind of want to lift up on that was, again, you having this idea, but also the importance, and you shared this before in previous discussions that we've had, was the importance of allyship within and across different organizations, right? So within your organization, for the leadership of that, of 2164 to be open to this idea.
Yes. The
allyship across across your network, across different organizations, like with myself and others that serve on the advisory committee. And I'm sure there's even more that don't necessarily are on the committee, but they have been remarkable in just resourcing ideas, connections. And so I think that that is an important a component of this redefinition in philanthropy. And I also want to speak about my service on the advisory committee. It's been just a very just reaffirming. It has also provided connections that I know and actually have gone beyond the cohort timeline itself. And that's really beautiful. I do see us as a community of real bridge builders, connectors, cheerleaders for the next generation of leaders,
Right.
BIPOC leaders included.
Right.
And so now, as I shared, that we just celebrated the graduation, or kind of the closing, even though it's not really a closing, we're transitioning, right? Of the first cohort, and going to be welcoming the second cohort as the lead organizer, as the chief curator in the Advisors of Color program. What are some of your reflections, and what are some of the future plans that you're most excited about?
Ooh, that's a big one, Erica. For me, I think we shared this offline, but it's so fitting that we're having this conversation right after our graduation session with the cohort members. And I think for me, a big reflection is that, one, I couldn't have done this without all of us doing it together. Like, we all played a part in creating this space. And so for the future, my question is, how do I continue moving in the speed of trust, right? When I first started, my intention is I'm not going to move forward until everyone is good with me moving forward. And that includes my colleagues, that includes the participants, that includes 2164 leadership. Decisions are made with trust and with intention, not with other values that may also be very important. But I think because inclusivity for me is my North Star in this work, I really wanted to take my time, which is why the cohort is a year long, and it's an inaugural cohort. The first year is a pilot. We really wanted to keep testing not until we get it right, but until we get it right for those that are in the room. And the room will change. We're coming in with a new cohort. They would want and aspire different things. And so the notion of flexibility, the notion of just building relationships and making space for other voices to come and lead is, for me, my North Star, and how I choose to lead moving forward.
Well, that's exciting. Again, it is just an honor to be on this journey and experience with you as 2164, and through your leadership builds out this program. So what else, Andine, what else in work and life is giving you energy at this time? And anything that you would like to share with the audience as far as maybe upcoming events, resources, ideas? This is your time to really share.
That's so generous of you. I think what's really giving me energy currently is just learning about how the current participants of this program is really taking advantage of what we have to offer. I want to give a shout out and a credit to them too. Like, this is a year-long commitment where we meet in very intense periods of time, a couple of times a month, sometimes even consecutively each month, where we talk about incredibly nuanced, sometimes challenging subjects around philanthropy, around navigating family dynamics, around donor relationships, around understanding or unpacking the various values that donors have, around moving money towards equity, moving money towards racial and equity, social justice. And so my shout out is that it's not easy to do this work. It's not easy to participate in this space. And also, it's not easy to do it outside of your work. So I kind of just want to underscore that these amazing individuals are taking the time that they could and would choose to do somewhere else to be here. One, I'm extremely eternally grateful. And secondly, just after today's session, learning about, what they've gained from the experience, hearing that it was worth it really warmed my heart. And and just, you know, a lot of the career moves that they've made and the thought leadership conversations and pieces that they've produced is what's giving me a lot of energy right now, that in spite of all the other important and urgent things that they have going on in their lives, that you, Erica, also have going on in your lives, like you'll show up and you're here to take advantage of this space. So that's really what's giving me energy, just taking a moment to pause and to celebrate and to be grateful. And any upcoming events to share? Well, the next cohort is coming up very soon. So very excited about bringing in some new energy in the room, some new perspectives as well. And I always love when people are able to say at the end of it that I have a much more transformative or enriching relationship with my donor because I'm able to be who I am. Like that to me is why I do this work. Because and I say we as people of color and professionals, I think have been conditioned and spent our whole entire lives working so hard to not show up as who we are. And so to be able to create a space where people can literally practice doing that, like learn how to, and then do it, and then feel it is not just energy. It's like, it's everything.
No, I think that you're right. I think that actually just kind of gave me some chills in the sense that what is being produced in this program, in addition to the community, is that empowerment and that, you know, being able to be oneself and honoring one's identity, but also realizing that it's reciprocated by others, and that's important, particularly if we are here in philanthropy for equity. Then we need to see all sides of ourselves and that we come across. And so that's definitely a part of the curriculum, the community, and the energy that that you have brought. And so that's great. Anything else? Anything that you'd like us to read or kind of keep an eye on? Definitely we'll drop in and share course, programs and upcoming events. But anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that I would shout out is that, you know, we've been doing a lot of this work for professionals and BIPOC philanthropic professionals with the Certified Advisors of Color program. And I think another part of the work that we're also doing is cultivating the skills to have courageous conversations around race and leadership. And, you know, that comes from the work that we do with families and donors, right? With all of the things that are happening in this world right now, all the injustices, the pandemic. A lot of families are having a really difficult time talking about not only world events, but how they choose to make an impact, given what's happening in the world. So we want to be able to build some resilience, build some skills to allow people to have more truthful and courageous conversations around race, around difficult topics. And so our executive director and president, Danielle Arishton York, along with Simon Greer, who's part of the Nantucket Project, are leading the charge and running sessions for not only donors in the field, but also professionals and also non-BIPOC professionals who would like to learn how to have courageous conversations and speak more truthfully about what they hope to achieve in this space. Yeah,
I'm definitely going to take a look at that and see. I mean, that is great. No, anything 2164 produces has been just resourceful and just best in class. So thank you for sharing those upcoming events and to look out for. So yeah, so now we'll kind of head into kind of our closing segment. And as I help frame this series is titled Redefining Philanthropy. And to me, that redefinition is really an expansion. Like it doesn't have to just be the traditional philanthropy maybe that we inherited, but what we can do to grow. And that can look in a variety of different ways. It can look with respect to who all is at the table of decision making, the chemistry and the conversations of decisions, incorporating more community and lived experiences in philanthropy to provide solutions for those communities. And so, Andine, why do you feel that redefining philanthropy is critical at this time?
Ooh, I think it's redefining philanthropy is critical, period. Like, I think that in every moment of interaction that we have in the field, we have the choice to enact change, to redefine who we are, to move in the world in a different way, and to sort of help people see it or see us in a way that makes us feel good and in a way that sustains the work that we do. So for me, it's not only important to redefine philanthropy, I think it's very much important to continue to do that, like to continue to define and redefine who we are, because as the world changes, the way that we participate in the system and the way that we participate in the world is not going to stay stagnant. And I think this series will provide people with a myriad of examples on how each individual is redefining their practice, redefining who they are, and redefining the work that they do. And it's going to provide a lot of inspiration. It's, for me, my grandma always says, if you don't think anyone can do this for you, like, you'd have to do it yourself. And there's so many times where I've sat down waiting for someone to give me permission to do something, or to maybe she will do it instead. Like, maybe I'll just sit here and wait, and like maybe that's something they'll do, you know? So it's really a time to take the ball and run with it, and do what you feel is your calling, or what I feel is my calling to do today. And it's important to redefine it, because in the future I might have a different calling, and I might be, creating and leading other things that will help sustain me. So at the end of the day, that use of self is really important. I need to fully believe in it. And I also need to believe that if not me, then who? And if not now, really, then when? So, yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. What I hear in your words and also have really appreciated about 2164 is kind of holding space for both ourselves and our role, right? And understanding how when we bring those together, that can be very powerful and make an impact. And so, Andine, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time and sharing your story and your hopes for, philanthropy. My hope is that redefining philanthropy, that this series is a forum that sparks ideas and inspires action, as you mentioned, to do it, to just jump in, and that all of our actions move us to a closer philanthropy that is truly equitable.
Amen.
Thank you, Andine.
Thank you so much, Erica.